Okay, my people, we are here to talk about the archetypal life path of Capricorn rising. This is my final one in the series, and wow. Um, Thank you guys for being here for it. Um, Capricorn rising is right when I picture an archetype for Capricorn rising, I picture Atlas. So, Atlas in Greek mythology is the man holding up the world. And so, as we move through talking about the different signs, right, we have it in the context of the rising sign. And Capricorn rising is taking on the weight of the world, right? It is coming into your life and beginning projects, understanding what other people have not taken responsibility for. This is such a brave place to be, such a brave sign to have as your rising sign. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I'll share kind of where I've come to in terms of our, do our birth charts happen to us, or do we choose them in some way? And I think in my life, in my work, in my healing journey, whatever makes us feel less helpless is the way that I go. I think that your out of sect malefic is your greatest teacher. My greatest teacher is Mars. And part of what I am unlearning and learning is where to step in to the Mars archetype, and how to refrain from leaning into Saturn. So, right? So I think that said, it is a lot more helpful to think that we chose our birth charts. And as a way to get to know ourselves, to ask ourselves, why? And to ask that question to the birth chart, to ask and be really, really honest with ourselves about the kinds of experiences we were craving. Now, I'm also a psychotherapist in the depth tradition. And in the depth tradition, suffering and struggle and failure to function is not inherently pathological, but can be a longing or a calling from the soul. Our souls don't care how easy things are. They want what they want. And I think that a birth chart can be an image of soul, because it's a complicated thing filled with paradox, struggle. There's no birth chart that means ease, and ease would present you with a life free from relationship to others and relationship to the divine. So I don't think that is really what any of us want. I think we want to move through the world, to come in contact, to share our experiences, to feel like we are connected to communities and forces outside of us. I think we're here to know and to create beauty. And I think that it is actually a deep blessing that none of us are enough, because that allows us to connect. to each other. And so, why am I saying this all before we talk about Capricorn rising? Well, kind of similar to the Scorpio rising chart, Capricorn rising has taken on something that is quite heavy, right? It's ruled by the greater malefic, by Saturn. Capricorn has less of the fuck you attitude of Aquarius. Capricorn, right, understands where other people have failed, and they set themselves impossible tasks of mastery. And of course, the ultimate mastery is the mastery of yourself. But that can get hairy, right? It can often bleed into the mastery of other people. And there's a kind of resignation of like, okay, I'll be the one to handle it. Now, the biggest risk of the Capricorn rising life is one of loneliness, is one of isolation. I think, Saturn also ruling Aquarius, we can kind of contrast it with that. Well, Aquarius kind of chooses the exile. It's the exile of being an outsider, of standing outside. With Capricorn, it's the exile of being the crown, of being kind of this linchpin in the wheel of things moving around, of holding the power and your inner authority, isolating you from others. And sometimes this can be self-inflicted, because one of the dangers of Capricorn rising is a lack of trust. And whenever we see control, there's a lack of trust, because when we trust other people, we don't control them. We don't need to control them. We trust that even if they're doing something different than we would have them do, we trust their process. We trust their differences. So you can see where it's tricky, right? Because on the one hand, Capricorn is saying, I'll be the one, I'll carry the heaviest burden, I'll do the hardest work. But that can also be a way that they alienate themselves from others. And so that I think what's at the core of that act is compassion and self-sacrifice, hopefully. Well, not self-sacrifice so much, but right, is this willingness to do the hard thing, to take the hard road. But it can end up being kind of drunk on its own power and kind of forgetting that the original sense of connection and devotion to others, that is the heart of Capricorn. So, whew. Capricorn is a sign of hard work. It's the sign of impossible tasks. No one takes things more seriously. No one takes life more seriously than Capricorn. It is kind of the sign of commitment over the long road, right? This is Saturn's earth sign. In some ways, it's easier, right? Saturn's exaltation is in an air sign in Libra. Its other rulership is Aquarius, air signs, right? We have these ideals in our minds up there. Capricorn is the work down here, right? Capricorn is working against history, against institutions, against what actually exists, right? The air signs can tell us what should exist in alignment with our ideals, but Capricorn is actually going to make it happen or not happen. It's actually going to uphold or take down. There is a relentlessness with Capricorn, right? It's a cardinal sign. It is the beginning of something. It is the perpetuation of something. It is the confrontation of what is inside of you with the things that exist around you that resist you. The things that exist around you that ignore you. We look to Saturn in the chart as the chart ruler. The condition of Saturn will help us know whether we feel confident or not, where the key area of our life is for us feeling mature enough. So that's Capricorn in the first. Aquarius then falls in the second, in a whole sign house. And Aquarius in the second, so part of the inherent feature of the Capricorn rising chart is that the first and the second have the same ruler. And that is not true for any other charts. So to have the first house tied to the second house, right? That means our sense of self and our resources and what we can draw upon and what supports us are connected, right? So in perhaps more than any other rising sign, the second house of Capricorn is the second house of Capricorn rising is self-esteem, because those things are connected, right? The feelings of solidity in going out and taking on these impossible tasks rests upon the clarity of the ideals that are connected to the sign of Aquarius, right? Aquarius is going to take the ideals, the objects of devotion, what it sees as the good, and it is going to make them universal. It is going to make them something that everyone should have a part of. So, right, if we think about the Declaration of Independence, what an Aquarian document. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is an Aquarian statement, right? That statement set things into motion that then the Capricornian ideal had to actually walk through the mud to make that happen, right? The Capricornian ideal actually had to wrestle with, okay, we said these Aquarian things, and now we're going to have to deal with whether they mean women are not equal. What does that mean for other races that don't have the same rights within the country, right? The Aquarian purity can be like, oh, this sounds so perfect. Like we have righteousness because we have this rational thing that's going to be revolutionary. And then the Capricorn heart has to wrestle with what that actually means and how that changes history and how that changes our institutions. So the resources of the Capricorn rising are in the ideas and ideals and the vows that they have made to what they believe in. Now, there's also a sense of individualism and rebelliousness, not wanting anybody else to control their money, right? That is, they want complete freedom to do whatever they want with it. And so we can see, right? Part of having power is having that kind of freedom to make those decisions, whatever they might be. We have Pisces in the third house, which is one of the ways that, I think Capricorn rising, oddly enough, reminds me a little bit of Libra rising in that there's some kind of themes of paradox in the personal and the collective. Because what we have in Pisces in the third house is this kind of feelings of connection and the faith and connection in the familiar. We also have a kind of, right, if the third house is kind of how you organize your day, I think of, or your weekly calendar, like what are the types of things that you're doing? Pisces is not super organized, right? Pisces is fairly chaotic and going with the flow. And so I think you can get kind of like the awkwardness of Capricorn, which I haven't really talked about, but right, in the archetype of Capricorn, we've got the goat whale, the goat fish. We have people that are comfortable down in the depths of the ocean on the tops of peaks that are super awkward at the grocery store, right? So this is almost like, someone that is more comfortable speaking on stage or being a leader or doing what needs to be done than they are kind of like with the niceties of like, this is for people for whom like fun can kind of be a growing edge, because Capricorn risings, relaxation is maybe not a huge part of it, right? I mean, if you're really paying attention and taking your role seriously in the way that the world moves, relaxation might feel like a kind of betrayal. So anyway, right? The third house is also like our everyday thoughts and the words that we're speaking. And for Capricorn risings with Pisces in the third, these are in universals. We're kind of steeping in the world around us, super affected by the neighborhood and the tone of the neighborhood and the feeling of the neighborhood and whether we feel safe or not safe in that space. The fourth house of Capricorn rising is Aries, is the other malefic. And so there is often a kind of conflict or a lack of cohesiveness in the family of origin. There can be a feeling of, I needed to go it alone in the family of origin. I needed to, right, really embody Mars and fight for myself or take care of myself in the family of origin, right? Capricorn risings are the quintessential parentified child, and you do not become a parentified child if everything went perfect. And now I'm not here to blame parents or throw shade or any of that, right? I think part of the mystery of our charts is how, like, our siblings can experience our parents completely differently, right? There's some felt sense. And so I'm not saying that all of this is that their home life is necessarily bad, but there is not kind of a sense of oneness in the family that they can connect with. Right? Everyone might be kind of doing their own thing, or they might feel like they're left behind or like they need to go solo. Again, we're going to check for where Mars is in the chart to see really how this is going to go and if that's okay with them or if that's not, right? There are placements where Mars is happy to be solo and other places where it might be grieving that loss of that family and trying to fill that. Then we have Taurus in the fifth. Okay. Pleasure is the creature comforts. I love Taurus in the fifth. I think that the fifth and Taurus really connect because there's a simplicity to Taurus in understanding and being able to feel the soul of materials, and that's actually a much safer hedonism than some of the other ones, right? wanting to have like nice things and comfort and predictability, right? There's a sweetness to that. It also speaks to a great way for Capricorn risings to calm down and connect with themselves and enjoy life again is to go out in nature, take up gardening, collect rocks and crystals, and use the natural things of the world to ground yourself and to restore a sense of joy. And so coming into that space and also paying attention to what feels good in your body. The Taurus can bring body wisdom. Then we have Gemini in the 6th. And so one of the things that can afflict Capricorn risings is anxiety. A nervous system that is overactive, right? We're looking for where Mercury is. But the life of the mind is present in the body when we have Gemini in the 6th. And so this also means that whenever there are Mercury retrogrades, we might feel the flare up in the body and some increased anxiety, in some increased just kind of bouncing around thoughts. Now, I think another way that we can that this shows up is in kind of this other way that I think about the 6th house, which is, as it's related to servants, it's also related to things that we kind of condescend towards. So Capricorn risings, right, we could say in this instance that they kind of throw shade on Gemini. And I think that's because Capricorn takes things so seriously and Gemini, more than any other sign, does not. So I think that there's a sense from the Capricorn risings that Gemini, the small talk, all these unorganized ideas, this endless creativity, these little questions about little things like working out the details, that's kind of beneath them because, right, again, they're the center of power, right? And if we're talking about a parentified child, it's kind of like, oh, playfulness is beneath me. I don't have time for play. I didn't get to do play. And the 6th house, can betray something that needs to be redeemed in us. And so I think, right, real healing work for Capricorn risings is in discovering playfulness and goofiness for its own sake, right? Being able to relax enough to like play board games that are maybe silly, that there can be a kind of contempt there that belies an unmet need of being able to be present and playful. Cancer in the 7th. So Cancer in the 7th, this is going to be what balances Capricorn rising. And what balances Capricorn rising is the tender-hearted Cancer. Now, this also speaks to their one-on-one relationships and what they can kind of offer and what those relationships allow for them to bring out in themselves. And that is the tender heart of Cancer. Now, they're going to be defended in this position, right? They are going to be defended. Cancer has a hard wall around its squishy, soft, sensitive center. And so Capricorn risings, right? You're in or you're out because they show up very vulnerable in their one-on-one relationships if they trust you and you are in their circle. They will protect you. Capricorn is one of the most loyal of any signs. And they will protect you until you hurt them or they see you as a weakness or a potential emotional threat. And then you will be out and you will not be forgiven, most likely. we're going to look to the moon. Where is the moon? This also means that they can experience the transits of the moons through their relationships. So while they stay in the stoic Capricorn, their relationships can be tumultuous because that's what's bringing them the kind of ebb and flow of the moon. And so you could also end up with Capricorn risings kind of experiencing a lot of drama and fluctuation in relationship, especially around eclipses, right? So if every lunar eclipse is going to be a major eclipse of the seventh house, so looking for changes in relationships around lunar eclipses. Leo in the 8th. Oh, so painful. Okay, here's why it's painful. It is painful because the 8th house is the place of, or at least initially, it's the place of shame. It's the secrets that we have about ourselves that we think make us unlovable in the beginning. We think that they make us unlovable. And so, right, it's only when we get into a deep relationship of deep intimacy, deep connection, or in a therapeutic relationship that we reveal these parts of ourselves. And the wound around having Leo in the 8th is that you weren't loved enough and you did not, get to see yourself as being special or feeling cherished. Capricorn risings need to feel cherished in their intimate and close relationships. That's something that they're afraid that they're selfish. They're afraid that they're selfish for needing. And yet they really need to be seen in that and to be celebrated and loved in their authenticity, because their authenticity can be something that they set aside because they think that they need to step up and take responsibility for taking care of the family unit or the company or the country or, So that's a kind of sweet way to love them too, to kind of give them their specialness in that Leo way, right? They're probably going to be really terrible at taking compliments in public, and they love it in private. They might need some reassurance though. Okay, then we have Virgo in the 9th. Oh my gosh, Virgo in the 9th. Here's one of these, like, we take a sign that's focused on the tiny, tiny, tiny stuff and we put it in a house that's about big, big, big stuff. Which either means that perfectionism itself can become this super obsessive ideal, which then, right? Virgo's ruled by Mercury, 6th house is ruled by Mercury. We can see it in problems with anxiety and nervous system issues, right? It is good for Capricorn risings, especially if you have strong Virgo placements, to do some Virgo work on your perfectionism, right? Virgo will exhaust itself and destroy itself if it just keeps running faster and faster and faster towards the ideal. No one can do that, right? Where Virgo really shines is in accepting that we'll never be perfect and becoming devoted to the practice of our ideals rather than the outcome of our actions. And so being in tune with that. So for Capricorn risings, it's going to be really, really important to practice what you preach. And you can flip that on its head. Preach what you practice. Right? Figure out what's actually working for you. Because it's going to show up in a daily life, because this is the earth sign. These are earth signs in the identity houses, right? You actually want to change the world. You'll do it in a Virgoan way. Little piece, little detail by detail, right? You can also think of the ninth house as the place of long-term plans. And with Virgo there, these are going to be very, very detailed plans. Exhaustive. I was talking to a family member who is a Capricorn rising, and this family member told me that they wrote a 6-page report for the babysitter, like with all the instructions about, like, when my child says this is what it means, right? This is Capricorn rising. Whoa, no, I'm like, no, the babysitter is going to text me if she has a question. Otherwise, I'm going to trust her to figure it out. But again, Capricorn rising, not trusting. I'm going to make sure that you have all the details. Okay. Now I'm realizing that I pulled this up and I have not been sharing it for the video. So you guys have all been seeing my lovely face. Okay. We have Libra in the 10th. And here is the sweetness and the softness of Capricorn, if you didn't catch it already, in having Cancer in the 7th house. Libra in the 10th, right? The highest aim, maybe the midheaven falls in Libra in a Capricorn rising chart. Maybe it doesn't. But we have the chart ruler exaltation in the 10th. So this is similar to a Gemini rising, who will have Mercury exalted in, nope, to a Sagittarius rising, who will have Mercury exalted in Virgo in the 10th. We've got the exaltation of the chart ruler in the 10th, which means the highest aim is to restore the world to the golden age, right? Saturn is the ruler of the golden age. It's exalted in Libra because Libra is where we put things all in their proper size and shape, and to set the world straight in service of beauty and harmony and righteousness and justice. Scorpio in the house of friends. Let's just say all Capricorn risings are Slytherins. Don't hate me. I'm not hating on Slytherins, but right, if you're talking about power and loyalty, you are talking about Slytherin, and having Scorpio in the house of friends, right? It's like, yeah, it's power and loyalty. It's probably not like, right? You're not best friends with Leos and Geminis if Scorpio is there, or, right, even if you are, right, they've got an intensity to them, right? For Capricorn to be comfortable, for it to be willing to be in an alliance with somebody, there has to be some kind of sincere seriousness, some intensity there, some outside of the norm, right? We've got the island of misfit toys, Scorpio, the counterculture. And Sagittarius in the 12th. This is all you Sagittarius with all those pretty ideas and your endless optimism. Don't you know that's not how the world works? Right? That's the blind spot. That's the reaction. I had all this optimism and then the world crushed me with Capricorn. Then the rubber meets the road with Capricorn. And so Sagittarius is in the 12th. I do think that this offers a deep devotional space in the 12th, but it's probably going to be private, right? Capricorn is going to be doing what's practical. It is not going to be going on Sagittarian adventures or being a missionary, right? It's less of the missionary and more of the institution of the church, consolidating power. Man, you guys are intense with these tender hearts inside. Yeah, my older siblings, the other children of Saturn, I wish you all the best. If you want help figuring this out, if you want help talking about your Capricorn rising chart or any charts, you can book readings on my website. Okay, thank you very much. I will see you in my next series. Bye.